right, everyone. This is Venus Brown. I am back with another reading of The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Today we're going to be reading chapters 5, 6, and 7. I thought about doing just 5 and 6, like I've usually been doing 2 chapters, but I think I think one of those chapters is short enough. A couple of those chapters are short enough that I can fit 3 in today. And today we're going to be doing a premiere instead of a live stream. This is the first time I think that I've done this. I'm trying to get around some of the issues that I'm having with my chat. I am hoping that doing it this way, like you're not going to see my chat on the chat box. At least I don't think so, because I'm recording this from Streamlabs, and then later on I will premiere it on YouTube, and you should be able to put in chat messages using YouTube's chat message thing just like usual. I'm just not sure exactly where those messages will go, other than just in my message section. But either way, let's go ahead and get on with this. So last time I read, we did chapters 3 and 4, and we were introduced to the wife. We were given a story about the first time that June, or Offred, and Serena, the commander's wife, met, which was not great. But we also got a flashback with Aunt Lydia in the Red Center explaining to think of how they might feel in this situation. Aunt Lydia doesn't explain fully, but the basic idea is these women are in a position where their husbands aren't feeling like they're giving them children, the wives. So they are going out of their way to hire a handmaid in order to have children. And that's going to make the wife feel a certain kind of way. Not only that, the husband has to have sex with this woman every month. And that's got to make the woman feel a certain kind of way too, and not necessarily great. So I get how that's going to be a problem, and the relationship between the handmaid and wife is not necessarily going to be amicable. But yeah, Serena comes across in the book and on the show as just a bit uptight and not a nice person. Um, anyway, the next chapter we are introduced to Nick, who how does she describe him as uh like low rated, not not high enough up to get a wife, that kind of thing. um and she also talks about how he either doesn't seem to realize that he is this like low rating, or he doesn't care, something to that effect. She talks about how he has his hat on askew, which wouldn't be uniform, which isn't something that Gilead is all for. They do not like your freedom of expression or anything like that. And he has his sleeves rolled up, which I think is because the work, but she seems to see it as something that is a miss, or something to that effect. Like maybe he's a little bit of a rebel, something like that. Either that, or he just doesn't get it. Anyway, now we're going to go on to our next chapters, chapter 5, 6, and 7. Um, and 5, I believe, will get more of the details about her walking partner of Glenn, who we were also introduced to. Um, chapter 6. Chapter 6, they're going to eventually get to the wall, the dreaded, infamous wall where people are hung. And then chapter 7, we're going to get a little introduction from a flashback of Moira. of Fred, or June's best friend. June in her past life, and Moira was her best friend. But even after they got to Gilead, even after they got to the situation where they had both been captured, they ended up in the same Red Center training together. So even in this new situation, she at least had Moira around for a little while. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the readings. First, let's go to the reading section. Chapter 5. Doubled, I walk the street. Though we are no longer in the commander's compound, there are large houses here also. In front of one of them, a guardian is mowing the lawn. The lawns are tidy, the facades are gracious, in good repair. They're like the beautiful pictures they used to print in the magazines and homes and gardens, in the magazines about homes and gardens and interior decoration. There is this same absence of people, the same air of being asleep. The street is almost like a museum, or a street in a model town constructed to show the way the people used to live. As in those pictures, those museums, those model towns, there are no children. This is the heart of Gilead, where the war cannot intrude except on television, where the edges are, we aren't sure, the vary according to the attacks and counterattacks. But this is the center where nothing moves. The Republic of Gilead, said Aunt Lydia, knows no bounds. Gilead is within you. Doctors lived here once, lawyers, university professors. There are no lawyers anymore, and the university is closed. Luke and I used to walk together sometimes along these streets. We used to talk about buying a house like one of these, an old big house, fixing it up. We would have a garden, swings for the children. We would have children. Although we knew it wasn't too likely we could ever afford it, it was something to talk about, a game for Sundays. Such freedom now seems almost weightless. We turn the corner onto a main street where there's more traffic. Cars go by, black most of them, some gray and brown. There are other women with baskets, some in red, some in dull green of the Marthas, some in the striped dresses, red and blue and green and cheap and skimpy, that mark the women of the poorer men. Eco-wives, they're called. These women are not divided into functions. They have to do everything, if they can. Sometimes there is a woman all in black, a widow. There used to be more of them, but they seem to be diminishing. So at this point, they've already gone past a period where there were a lot of women with dying husbands, because Gilead was taking over our country, taking over America. And now they're at a point where there's less and less of these mourning wives, because more of their husbands are alive, at least at that period, and not so many of them are dying, because the wars and battles and everything going on with their takeover is coming to not a completion, but it's coming closer to a completion. There are fewer wars and battles and things like that going on with the remaining outskirts of the United States that might have some semblance of existence left. You don't see the commanders' wives on the sidewalks, only in cars. The sidewalks here are cement, like a child. I avoid uh, the sidewalks here are cement. Like a child, I avoid stepping on the cracks. I'm remembering my feet on these sidewalks in the time before, and what I used to wear on them. Sometimes it was shoes for running, with cushioned soles and breathing holes, and stars of fluorescent fabric that reflected light in the darkness. Though I never ran at night, and in the daytime only beside well frequented roads. Women were not protected then. I remember the rules. Rules that were never spelled out, but that every woman knew. Don't open your door to a stranger, even if he says he is the police. Make him slide his ID under the door. Don't stop on the road to help a motorist pretending to be in trouble. Keep the locks on and keep going. If anyone whistles, don't turn to look. Don't go into a laundromat by yourself at night. I think about the laundromats, what I wore to them: shorts, jeans, jogging pants, what I put into them, my own clothes, my own soap, my own money, money I had earned myself. I think about having such control. Now we walk along the streets in red pairs, and no man shouts obscenities at us, speaks to us, touches us. No one whistles. There's more than one kind of freedom, said Aunt Lydia. Freedom to and freedom from. In the days of anarchy, it was freedom to. Now you are being given freedom from. Don't underrate it. And we're going to see later on. So Aunt Lydia is trying to sell this because Aunt Lydia believes this herself deeply in her soul, that this is that these rules that they now live by versus the rules that they had before are protecting these women, that they are making these women safer by keeping them in a narrow role and keeping the men in their own side of the street, so to speak, and trying to keep everything very freaking regimented and protected, that they're keeping these women safe, that they no longer have to deal with these unwritten rules that we have to go by now. But the reality is that you still have men who are on a freaking power trip, who are in control, and they are going to harm these women. Putting a bunch of rules and regulations in place to stop them may mitigate some of it, but it does not stop it. They just cover it up more. They just make it more hidden. It's not so obvious. And I will just say, because the before times that Aunt Lydia is and June and Offred are talking about is talking about our times, the things that we go through today. That yes, most women, I would say probably all women, constantly have these ideas in their mind that other people put in their minds, that they have to dress a certain way, they have to walk a certain way, they have to act a certain way, they can only go out at certain times, they can only go out with certain people, things like that, because they need to be kept safe from men that might attack them. But also, the idea that we should be forced to do these things in order to keep ourselves safe, to me, is ridiculous. Like, when things happen to women so often, we hear this refrain over and over again from other people. They should have done this. They should have done this. They should have known better, blah, 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 blah. And it's always pointed right at the woman that was victimized, with very little of the focus pointing at what the man should have done, what the man should be doing, what the man needs to be striving for, what the man should avoid. Because The only thing they're mad about the man for is that he did this. They're not mad at the man because he didn't do anything to avoid it. They're not mad at the man because he didn't stop himself from being in a position where something like this might happen. Because guess what? It's the man in control of the situation. It's the man doing these things that put the woman in this position. So I think a lot of us that are not focused on what should the woman have done different? What does the woman need to do to protect herself? A lot of us now are like, what about focusing on the man who is doing these things to the women? What about focusing on raising our men and boys up to be better and to do better, to actually be responsible for their own actions, their own decisions? What about raising the men and boys up to actually not put themselves in this situation and to actually control themselves and not allow themselves to victimize women? So that idea seems to be completely void from Aunt Lydia's mind. Aunt Lydia isn't thinking like that at all. Aunt Lydia is completely thinking, if we dress a certain way and we act a certain way and we follow all the rules and we do all the things we're supposed to, then surely we will not be victimized. And I think many of us that have been in situations where we were following all the rules, we were not doing anything wrong, and we still were victimized, are like, wait a minute, that's just not true. It often does not matter whether you're following all the rules or not. These men have this idea that somehow they are due the right to victimize you in whatever way they want. And that's because of the way they're raised, primarily. That's because they have been allowed to get away with it for so long. And when we finally start fighting back against that, people get upset. Well, this is just the way men are. We shouldn't mess with that. Like, no, we should mess with that. And men should get in trouble for this. They should be made aware that if you are going to behave in a certain way, that is going to put you in the spotlight and that is going to make you more likely to get in trouble. And so therefore, you should be doing the right thing. I don't have a problem at all with this shift in focus from focusing on women doing everything right to focusing on the men taking responsibility for their actions and behavior and stopping themselves before it ever happens from doing the wrong thing. But anyway, let's get back to the reading. Now we walk along the same street in red pairs, and no man shouts obscenities at us, speaks to us, touches us. No one whistles. There is more than one I already read this part, so let's get on to the next paragraph. In front of us to the right is the store where we order dresses. Some people call them habits, a good word for them. Habits are hard to break. The store has a huge wooden sign outside of it, in the shape of a golden lily. Lilies of the field, it's called. You can see the place, under the lily, where the lettering was painted out, when they decided that even the names of shops were too much temptation for us. Now places are known by their signs alone. Lily's used to be a movie theater before. Students went there a lot. Every spring they had a Humphrey Bogart festival with Lauren Bacall or Katharine Hepburn, women on their own, making up their own minds. They wore blouses with buttons down the front that suggested the possibilities of the word undone. These women could be undone or not. They seemed to be able to choose. We seemed to be able to choose then. We were a society dying, said Aunt Lydia, of too much choice. I don't know when they stopped having the festival. I must have been grown up, so I didn't notice. We don't go into Lily's, but across the street and along a side street, our first stop is at a store with another wooden sign. 3 eggs, a bee, a cow, milk and honey. There's a line, and we wait our turn, 2 by 2. I see they have oranges today. Ever since Central America was lost to the Libertios, oranges have oranges have been hard to get. Sometimes they are here, no, sometimes they are there, sometimes not. The war interferes with the oranges from California, and even Florida isn't dependable when there are roadblocks or when the train tracks have been blown up. I looked at the oranges, longing for one, but I haven't brought any tokens for oranges. I'll go back and tell Rita about them, I think. She'll be pleased. It will be something, a small achievement to have made oranges happen. The little bit about California and Florida. So I think from what I remember when I started looking at the maps, that at this time, Florida is kind of considered its own independent state. So no longer part of the U.S., but not part of Gilead, its own individual thing. I think Texas was too. California, I'm pretty sure, is part of the still United States, but I may be wrong about that. They may be Gilead, but I think they're still part of the U.S. Those who've reached the counter hand their tokens across it to the 2 men in guardian uniforms who stand on the other side. Nobody talks much, though there is a rustling, and the women's heads move furtively from side to side. Here, shopping is where you might see someone you know, someone you've known in the time before, or at the Red Center. Just to catch a sight of the face like that is an encouragement. Just to catch sight of a face like that is an encouragement. If I could see Moira, just see her, know she still exists. It's hard to imagine now, having a friend. But if Glenn beside me isn't looking, maybe she doesn't know anyone anymore. Maybe they have all vanished, the woman she knew. Or maybe she doesn't want to be seen. She stands in silence, head down. As we wait in our double line, the door opens and 2 more women come in, both in the red dresses and white wings of the handmaids. One of them is vastly pregnant. Her belly under loose garments swells triumphantly. There's a shifting in the room, a murmur, an escape of breath. Despite ourselves, we turn our heads blatantly to see better. Our fingers itch to touch her. She's a magic presence to us, an object of envy and desire. We covet her. She's a flag on a hilltop, showing us what can still be done. We too can be saved. The women in the room are whispering, almost talking, so great is their excitement. Who is it? I hear behind me. Of Wayne. No, of Warren. Show off, a voice hisses, and this is true. A woman that pregnant doesn't have to go out, doesn't have to go shopping. The daily walk is no longer prescribed to keep her abdominal muscles in working order. She needs only the floor exercises, the breathing drill. She could stay at her house, and it's dangerous for her to be out. There must be a guardian standing outside the door waiting for her. Now that she's the carrier of life, she is closer to death and needs special security. Jealousy could get her. It's happened before. All children are wanted now, but not by everyone. So I want to say something about this. The idea that pregnant women have to kind of step back and they have to reduce their exercise and all this stuff for the safety of the baby is, from what I've understood by the doctors that I have spoken to, is not correct. If the woman is used to doing a decent amount of exercise and activity, it's actually supposed to be fine or even better for them to maintain that level of activity that they were used to before they got pregnant. If they're used to not doing much of anything, then that's totally fine to lay back and not do as much. But if you're like used to doing a whole bunch of stuff, yeah, you got to listen to the doctors, and if the doctors say it's time for bed rest, like you need to help things out along because your pregnancy's risky or whatever, then yeah, you're going to listen to the doctor and you're going to lay off. But if you have a healthy pregnancy and there haven't been increased risks showing that your health is in decline or the fetus's health is in decline, then doing a bunch less of activity than what you were used to before you got pregnant is not actually a good idea. Now, the danger of other people trying to get her baby, possibly kidnap her, harm her, whatever, that is a completely separate matter. But the idea that she doesn't need to or shouldn't be taking these walks is kind of absurd, because they have these women doing these walks twice a day. It's a normal part of their regimen at this point. So just switching to breathing and floor exercises, not really the greatest idea, because then you're not keeping up their regimen. And the idea that it's going to be better for her womb isn't necessarily true. You're weakening those muscles rather than strengthening them, rather than keeping them maintained. Anyway, on we go. But the walk may be a whim of hers, and they honor whims when someone has gone this far and there's been no miscarriage. Or perhaps she's one of those pile it on, I can take it, a martyr. I catch a glimpse of her face as she raises it to look around. The voice behind me was right. She's come to display herself. She's glowing, rosy. She's enjoying every minute of this. Quiet, says one of the guardians behind the counter, and we hush like schoolgirls. Of Glenn and I have reached the counter. We hand over our tokens, and one guardian enters the number on them into the CompuBite. Compu this and compu that. They have these like very not creative names for everything. CompuBite. While the other gives us our purchases, the milk, the eggs, we put them into our baskets and go out again, past the pregnant woman and her partner, who beside her looks spindly, shrunken, as we all do. The pregnant woman's belly is like a huge fruit, humongous, word of my childhood. Her hands rest on it as if to defend it, or as if they're gathering something from it, warmth and strength. As I pass, she looks full at me, into my eyes, and I know who she is. She was at the Red Center with me, one of the Aunt Lydia's pets. I never liked her. Her name in the time before was Janine. Janine looks at me. Then, and around the corners of her mouth, there is the trace of a smirk. She glances down to where my own belly lies flat under my red robe, and the wings cover her face. I can see only a little of her forehead and the pinkish tip of her nose. Next, we go into All Flesh, which is marked by a large wooden pork chop hanging from two chains. There isn't so much of a line here. Meat is expensive, and even the commanders don't have it every day. Of Glenn gets steak, though, and that's the second time this week. I'll tell that to the Marthas. It's the kind of thing they enjoy hearing about. They are very interested in how other households are run. Such bits of petty gossip give them an opportunity for pride or discontent. I take the chicken wrapped in butcher's paper and trussed with string. Not many things are plastic anymore. I remember those endless white plastic shopping bags from the market. I hated to waste them and would stuff them in and under the sink until the day we would until the day would come when there would be too many, and I would open the cupboard door and they would bulge out, sliding over the floor. Luke used to complain about it. Periodically, he would take all the bags and throw them out. So, yeah, like this is an obvious problem of the time, which I still have. I hear people complaining about states like California having laws where they don't use the bags or they charge for the bags, things like that. Or yeah, everywhere that I know now will sell you reusable bags that you can bring to the store, which I have. I have a handful of them. I almost never remember to bring them. But I do make more of a point now to just not use the grocery bags. If I'm bagging stuff myself, I will put it on in the area where the bags go. And then when it starts to get too full, I will go ahead and remove that stuff and put it in my cart. And sometimes I'll go to stores that just don't have bags, and that's totally fine with me too. Then you just load up your cart, you take the cart to the car, empty it out, bring the cart back, whatever, no big deal. I don't have a problem with that. When I have been to California, my biggest issue with not having the bags was that I was on foot, so I had to like carry the stuff with me. But I think I only had a couple things, so it wasn't that big a deal, but I did have to like carry what I had with me back to where I was going, out in the open where everybody could see it. So that was a little weird, but other than that, I don't care. And especially if I have my own car or a rental or something like that, I'm okay with just packing the stuff in the car without a bag and then walking the stuff back in the house. It's extra exercise anyway, but whatever. Me and my diatribes about random things. Anyway, she could get one of those over her head, he'd say. You know how kids like to play. She never would, I'd say. She's too old, or too smart, or too lucky. But I would feel a chill of fear, and then guilt for having been so careless. It was true. I took too much for granted. I trusted fate back then. I'll keep them in a higher cupboard, I'd say. Don't keep them at all, he'd say. We never use them for anything. Garbage bags, I'd say. He'd say. Which we do use them for garbage bags. There's just never enough. Like, there's never enough times that we need the garbage bags to even come close to using them all. So we still end up with this massive pile of them. We have a separate little dispenser that you can stuff them in and pull one out at a time, that is usually full. But then we also usually have a couple of bags that are completely stuffed full. But at least the grocery stores around here now will take the grocery bags back. I don't know exactly what they do with them, but I know they take them back, and that is where I put them. I do not throw them in the trash. Not here and now, not where people are looking. I turn, see my silhouette in the plate glass window. We have come outside then. We are on the street. A group of people is coming towards us. They're tourists from Japan, it looks like. A trade delegation, perhaps, on a tour of the historic landmarks or out for local color. They're diminutive and neatly turned out. Each has his or her camera, his or her smile. They look around, bright-eyed, cocking their heads to one side like robins. Their very cheerfulness aggressive, and I can't help staring. It's been a long time since I've seen skirts that short on women. The skirts reach just below the knee, and the legs come out from beneath them, nearly naked in their thin stockings, blatant. The high-heeled shoes with their straps attached to the feet, the the delicate instruments of torture. The women teeter on their spiked feet as if on stilts, but off balance. Their backs arch at the waist, thrusting the buttocks out. Their heads are uncovered, and their hair too is exposed in all its darkness and sexuality. They wear lipstick, red outlining the damp cavities of their mouths, like scrawls of a washroom wall of the time before. So you can kind of see in this passage, they've already gotten this brainwashing kind of sinked in. These women are already seeing these ladies as being something garish, something of sexually aggressive and things like that. They're looking at cheerfulness as aggressive. She's talking about how these skirts are so short because they go just below the knees, and their legs are coming out, and they're almost naked in their thin stockings. Talking about the high-heeled shoes that are torture, which I agree, they are fucking torture instruments, and I don't wear high heels because no, I'm not doing that to myself. But outside of that, like, it's very focused on this judgmental outlook on how women dress and how women appear when they're free to kind of dress themselves and a regime isn't telling them exactly how to dress and telling them to be super modest and just cover everything up, and not like even the lipstick, all of it. The hair, they said, the hair too is exposed in all its darkness and sexuality. So yeah, it's already there. It's already implemented. What does that do to your psyche? And especially if you've been living in this for a few years, that's gonna really do something to you. And then that's gonna be hard on you if you do get out and you're back with these women that are dressing how they usually would, and they're doing their own thing. That brainwashing has a real effect. All right, back. I stop walking. If Glenn stops beside me, and I know that she too cannot take her eyes off these women. We are fascinated, but also repelled. They seem undressed. It has taken us so little time to change our minds about things like this. Then I think, I used to dress like that. That was freedom. Westernized, they used to call it. Japanese tourists come towards us, twittering, and we turn our heads away too late. Our faces have been seen. There's an interpreter in the standard blue suit, the red pattern tie with the winged eye tie. Ugh. There's an interpreter in the standard blue suit and the red pattern tie with the winged eye tie pin. The winged eye tie pin. He's the one who steps forward out of the group, in front of us, blocking our way. The tourists bunch behind him. One of them raises a camera. Excuse me, he says to both of us, politely enough. They're asking if they can take your picture. I look down at the sidewalk, shake my head for no. What they must see is the white wings only, a scrap of face, my chin, and part of my mouth, not the eyes. I know better than to look the interpreter in the face. Most of the interpreters are eyes, or so it's said. I also know better than to say yes. Modesty is invisibility, said Aunt Lydia. Never forget it. To be seen is to be. Her voice trembled, penetrated. What you must be, girls, is impenetrable. She called us girls. Beside me of Glenn is also silent. She tucked her red gloved hands up into her sleeves to hide them. The interpreter turns back to the group, chatters at them in staccato. I know what he'll be saying. I know the line. He'll be telling them that the women here have different customs, that to stare at them through the lens of a camera is for them an experience of violation. I'm looking down at the sidewalk, mesmerized by the woman's feet. One of them is wearing open-toed sandals, the toenails painted pink. I remember the smell of nail polish, the way it wrinkled if you put the second coat on too soon, the satiny brushing of sheer pantyhose against the skin, the way the toes felt, pushed towards the opening in the shoe by the whole weight of the body. The woman with painted toes shifts from one foot to another. I can feel her shoes on my own feet. The smell of nail polish has made me hungry. "Excuse me," says the interpreter again, to catch our attention. I nod to show I've heard him. He asks, "Are you happy?" says the interpreter. I can imagine it, their curiosity. Are they happy? How can they be happy? I can feel their bright black eyes on us, the way they lean a little forward to catch our answers. The women especially, but the men too. We are secret, forbidden. We excite them. Of Glenn says nothing. There's a silence. But sometimes it's dangerous, but sometimes it's as dangerous not to speak. "Yes, we are very happy," I murmur. I have to say something. What else can I say? So she says they're very happy, but that's not really true. All right, chapter 6. A block past All Flesh of Glen pauses, as if hesitant about which way to go. We have a choice. We could go straight back, or we could take the long way around. We already know which way we will take because we always take it. "I'd like to pass by the church," says of Glen, as if piously. "All right," I say, as though I know as well as she does what she's really after. We walk sedately. The sun is out in the sky. There are white, fluffy clouds, the kind that look like headless sheep. Given our wings, given our wings, our blinkers, it's hard to look up, hard to get the full view of the sky, of anything. But we can do it, a little at a time, a quick move of the head up and down, to the side and back. We have learned to see the world in gasps. To the right, if you could walk along, there's a street that would take you down toward. Ugh. To the right, if you could walk along, there's a street that would take you down towards the river. There's a boathouse where they kept the schools once, and some bridges, trees, green banks, where you could sit and watch the water, and young men with their naked arms, their oars lifting into the sunlight as they played at winning. On the way to the river are the old dormitories, used for something else now, with their fairy tale turrets, painted white and gold and blue. What we think of the past, its beautiful things we pick out. When we think of the past, it's the beautiful things we pick out. We want to believe it was all like that. The football stadium is down there too, where they hold the men's salvagings, as well as the football games. They still have those. So they're having salvagings and football games. And we'll learn more about the salvagings later. But like they're treating these both as if they're sports for people to entertain the people. I don't go to the river anymore, or over bridges, or on the subway, although there's a station right there. We're not allowed on. There are guardians now. There's no official reason for us to go down those steps, ride on the trains under the river into the main city. Why would we want to go from here or to there? We would be up to no good, and they would know it. The church is a small one of the first erected here, hundreds of years ago. It isn't used anymore, except as a museum. Inside it, you can see paintings of women in long, somber dresses, their hair covered by white caps, and of upright men, darkly clothed, darkly clothed and unsmiling. Our ancestors. Admission is free. We don't go in, though, but stand on the path, looking at the churchyard. The old gravestones are still there, weathered, eroding, with their skulls and crossbones. Memento mori, their doe-faced angels, their winged hourglasses to remind us of the passing of mortal time, and from a later century, their urns and willow trees for mourning. They haven't fiddled with the gravestones or the church either. It's only more recent history that offends them. Of Glenn's of Glenn's head is bowed and as ugh. Of Glenn's head is ugh. Sorry. Of Glenn's head is bowed as if she is praying. She does this every time. Maybe, I think, there's someone in particular gone for her too. A man, a child, but I can't entirely believe it. I think of her as a woman for whom every act is done for show, is acting rather than a real act. She does such things. She does such things to look good, I think. She's out to make the best of it. But that is what I must look like to her as well. How can it be otherwise? Now we turn our backs on the church, and there is the thing we've in truth come to see. The wall. The wall is hundreds of years old, too, or over 100 at least. Like the sidewalks, it's red brick and must once have been plain but handsome. Now the gates have sentries, and there are ugly new floodlights mounted on metal posts above it, and barbed wire along the bottom and broken glass set in concrete along the top. No one goes through these gates willingly. The precautions are for those trying to get out, though to make it even as far as the wall from the inside, past the electronic alarm system, would be next to impossible. Beside the main gate there are 6 more bodies hanging by the necks, their hands tied in front of them, their heads in white bags tipped sideways into their shoulders. There must have been a men's salvaging earlier this morning. I didn't hear the bells. Perhaps I've become used to them. We stop together as if on signal, and stand and look at the bodies. It doesn't matter if we look. We're supposed to look. This is what they are there for, hanging on the wall. Sometimes they'll be there for days, until there's a new batch. So as many people as possible will have the chance to see them. What they are hanging from is hooks. The hooks have been set into the brickwork of the wall for this purpose. Not all of them are occupied. The hooks look like appliances for the armless, or steel question marks, upside down and sideways. It's the bags over the head that are the worst. Worse than the faces themselves would be. It makes the men look like dolls on which faces have not yet been painted, like scarecrows, which in a way is what they are, since they are meant to scare. Or as if their heads are sacks stuffed with the undifferentiated material, like flour or dough. It's the obvious heaviness of the heads, their vacancy, the way gravity pulls them down, and there's no life anymore to hold them up. The heads are zeros. Though if you look and look as we are doing, you can see the outlines of the features under the white cloth, like gray shadows. The heads are the heads of snowmen, like the coal eyes and the carrot noses fallen out. The heads the heads are melting. But on one bag there's blood, which has seeped through the white cloth where the mouth must have been. It makes another mouth, a small red one, like the mouths painted with thick brushes by kindergarten children. A child's idea of a smile. The smile of blood is what fixes the attention finally. These are not snowmen after all. The men wear white coats, like those worn by doctors or scientists. Doctors and scientists aren't the only ones. There are others, but they must have had a run on them this morning. Each has a placard hung around his neck to show why he has been executed. A drawing of a human fetus? They were doctors then, in the time when such things were legal. Angel markers, they used to call them. Or was that something else? They've been turned up now by the searches through hospital records. More likely, since most hospitals destroyed such records once it became clear what was going to happen, by informants. Ex-nurses, perhaps, or a pair of them, since evidence from a single woman is no longer admissible. Or another doctor, hoping to save his own skin. Or someone they already accused, lashing out at an enemy or at random, in some desperate bid for safety, though informants are not always pardoned. And on the picture that I used, I think it comes from another scene where they walk by the same wall. There's other people that are hanging, and we'll get to that later on in the story. Right now, they're talking about the doctors that were hung there in white coats, and on the one in the picture, because it's from like what they showed on the TV show. The sacks actually have images on them rather than anything hung around their neck. I don't remember anything being hung on anybody's neck on the wall hangings in the show. These men, we've been told, are like war criminals. It's no excuse that what they did was legal at the time. Their crimes are retroactive. They have committed atrocities and must be made into examples for the rest. Though this is hardly needed, no woman in her right mind these days would seek to prevent a birth, should she be so lucky as to conceive. What we are supposed to feel towards these bodies is hatred and scorn. This isn't what I feel. These bodies banging on the wall are time travelers, anachronisms. I think it's supposed to say hanging on the wall. These bodies hanging on the wall are time travelers, anachronisms. They've come here from the past. What I feel towards them is blankness. What I feel is that I must not feel. What I feel is partly relief because none of these men is Luke. Luke wasn't a doctor, isn't. I look at the one red smile. The red of the smile is the same as the red of the tulips in Serena Joy's garden, towards the base of the flowers where they are beginning to heal. The red is the same, but there is no connection. The tulips are not tulips of blood. The red smiles are not flowers. Neither thing makes a comment on the other. The tulip is not a reason for disbelief in the hanged man, or vice versa. Each thing is valid and really there. It is through a field of such valid objects that I must pick my way. Every day, and in every way, I put a lot of effort into making such distinctions. I need to make them. I need to be very clear in my own mind. I feel a tremor in the woman beside me. Is she crying? In which way would it make her look good? I can't afford to know. My own hands are clenched, I note, tight around the handle of my basket. I won't give anything away. Ordinary, said Aunt Lydia, is what they are used to. This may not seem ordinary to you now, but after a time it will. It will become ordinary. Okay, now we're going to move on to part 3, night again. There are several parts in here that are labeled night, so it is what it is. And chapter 7. Okay. Chapter 7. The night is mine, my own time, to do with as I will, as long as I'm quiet, as long as I don't move, as long as I lie still. The difference between lie and lay. Lay is always passive. Even men used to say, I'd like to get laid. Though sometimes they said, I'd like to lay her. All this is pure speculation. I don't really know what men used to say. I had only their words for it. I lie, then, inside the room, under the plaster eye in the ceiling, behind the white curtains, between the sheets, neatly as they, and step sideways out of my own time, out of time. Though this is time, nor am I out of it. But the night is my time out. Where should I go? Somewhere good? Moira is on the edge of my bed, legs crossed, ankle on knee in her purple overalls, one dangling earring, the gold fingernail she wore to be eccentric, a cigarette between her stubby yellow-ended fingers. Let's go for beer. You're getting ashes in my bed, I said. If you'd make it, you wouldn't have this problem, said Moira. In half an hour, I said. I had a paper due the next day. What was it? What was it? Psychology? English? Economics? We studied things like that then. On the floor of the room there were books, open face down, this way and that, extravagantly. Now, said Moira, you don't need to paint your face. It's only me. What's your paper on? I just I just did one date rape. I just did one on date rape. Date rape, I said. You're so trendy. It sounds like some kind of dessert. Date rape. Ha ha, said Moira. Get your coat. She got it herself and tossed it at me. I'm borrowing $5 off you, okay? Or in a park somewhere with my mother. How old was I? It was cold. Our breaths came out in front of us. There were no leaves on the trees. Gray sky, 2 ducks in the pond, disconsolate. Breadcrumbs under my fingers, in my pocket. That's it, she said. We were going to feed the ducks. But there were some women burning books. That's what she was really there for. To see her friends. She'd lied to me. Saturdays were supposed to be my day. I turned away from her, sulking, towards the ducks, but the fire drew me back. There were some men, too, among the women, and the books were magazines. They must have poured gasoline because the flames shot high, and then they began dumping the magazines from boxes, not too many at a time. Some of them were chanting. Onlookers gathered. Their faces were happy, ecstatic almost. Fire can do that. Even my mother's face, usually pale, thinnish, looked ruddy and cheerful. like a Christmas card. Excuse me. And there was another woman, large, with a root smear, with with a soot smear, and there was another woman, large, with a soot smear down her cheek and an orange knitted cap. I remember her. You want to throw one on, honey? She said. How old was I? Good riddance to bad rubbish, she said, chuckling. It's okay, she said to my mother. If she wants to, my mother said. She had a way of talking about me to others as if I couldn't hear. The woman handed me one of the magazines. It had a pretty woman on it, with no clothes on, hanging from the ceiling by a chain wound around her hands. I looked at it with interest. It didn't frighten me. I thought she was swinging like Tarzan from a vine on the TV. Don't let her see it, said my mother. Here, she said to me, toss it in quick. I threw the magazine into the flames. It riffled open in the wind. It rifled open in the wind. See, riffled, because the double F's makes me think it's riffled, but that looks like it should be rifled. It rifled open in the wind of its burning. Big flakes of paper came loose, sailed into the air, still on fire, parts of women's bodies, turning to black ash in the air before my eyes. But then what happens? I know, I lost time. There must have been needles, pills, something like that. I couldn't have lost that much time without help. You have had a shock, they said. I would come up through a roaring and confusion like surf boiling. I can remember feeling quite calm. I can remember screaming. It felt like screaming, though it may have been only a whisper. Where is she? What have you done with her? There was no night or day, only a flickering. After a while, there were chairs again, and a bed, and after that, a window. She's in good hands, they said, with people who are fit. You are unfit. But you want the best for her, don't you? They showed me a picture of her, standing outside on a lawn. Her face a closed oval. Her light hair was pulled back tight behind her head. Holding her hand was a woman I didn't know. She was only as tall as the woman's elbow. You've killed her, I said. She looked like an angel, solemn, compact, made of air. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen, white and down to the ground. I would like to believe this is a story I'm telling. I need to believe it. I must believe it. Those who can believe that such stories are only stories have a better chance. If it's a story I'm telling, then I have control over the ending. Then there will be an ending. Sorry. Then there will be an ending to the story, and real life will come after it. I can pick off where I left off. I can pick up where I left off. But it isn't a story I'm telling. It's also a story I'm telling in my head as I go along. Tell rather than write, because I have nothing to write with, and writing is in any case forbidden. But if it's a story, even in my head, I must be telling it to someone. You don't tell a story only to yourself. There's always someone else. Even when there is no one. A story is like a letter. Dear you, I'll say. Just you, without a name. Attaching the names attaches you to the world of fact, which is riskier, more hazardous. Who knows what the chances are out there of survival, yours. I will say you like an old love song. You can mean more than one. You can mean thousands. I'm not in any immediate danger, I'll say to you. I'll pretend you can hear me. But it's no good. because I know you can't. Sometimes some of this stuff just kind of hits me, but that idea when she goes from this narrating what's going on in her current life and how she's living her life versus remembering the past and acknowledging that what she's saying is storytelling. It's both memories, it is also kind of documenting what's happening, but it's also what's going on currently. It's how she's reasoning things through her head. And in this case, who's she telling this to? Is she telling it to herself? Is she telling it to somebody else? Is she telling it to future her? Is she telling it to somebody that she's hoping at some point will hear it? And at this point, like she said, she can't write it down. She doesn't have access to any way to document it other than in her head, other than her own mind narrating this story. Later on, we'll see that there are other ways that she'll be able to document things, which is how these stories, according to her story, end up out in the open, end up going public, so to speak. But anyway, that's all I got for you today. I will see you sometime this weekend. And I'm not sure which paragraphs I'll be reading or pages I'll be reading. Chapters. I'm not sure which chapters I'll be reading, but we'll be starting from part 4. But we'll be starting from part 4, the waiting room. I'll see you then.